So before we start with the discussion, I would like to ask you this question to see if what is your understanding when we talk about human development. So how would you define human development in your own words? And I have prepared a worklap for your activity for this one. So for me to check, what is your basic understanding of what human development is? And take note when you answer this question, please do not use Google or do not ask Google, ChatGPT, or Copilot for your answer. I want to see your basic understanding of what human development is. You can participate by scanning this QR code. You can use your laptop or your mobile phone to scan the QR code so that you can answer the activity. I'll wait for your responses. It should show here. We're getting responses now. Okay, maybe we'll wait until maabot 20 ang atong responses. So far, we have 18 responses. So let me read some of your responses in terms of how you define human development based on your own understanding. So in my own understanding, human development refers to growth of human being when it comes to improvement of its physiological, psychological, and physical self. So in my own understanding, human development refers to the growth of human being when it comes to the improvement of its physiological, psychological, physical self through acquisition of knowledge and practices in which they develop or practice in everyday life. Okay. Lifelong growth and change. And someone also said it is how a person grow in various environment from birth to until death. And human development improves one's well-being. It is also complex and multidimensional. That is true. Human development is multidimensional. It's not unidirectional or dimensional. Human development means people growth and improvement. It is how and why people change and develop in lifetime. The holistic development of humanistic attributes, all encompassing aspects of human person to be developed, how we learn and improve ourselves, the growth and changes that humans go through as they age and become more mature, even every aspect of life. Okay. All right. So you have very good definitions when it comes to human development. Basically, you have an idea what it is about. You're talking about development, you're talking about changes, you're talking about physiological changes, psychological changes, emotional, and all aspects of human changes, human development. So basically, we define human development as a scientific study of processes. When we talk about processes, there is a step-by-step process, or there is a continuous process of change. And not only change, we also talk about stability throughout human lifespan. So when we talk about human development, if the development per se, the development of the word development, what does it refer? That refers to progress. Okay, there is no development if nag-regress yan, nag-atras. Development should be progress. It's moving forward, and there should be that should involve something that has changed. However, when we talk about human development, there are things that change over time. There are also factors that are stable over a period of time. So that's what we're going to talk about when we discuss human development. So in this topic in this discussion that I'm going to conduct with you today, I am going to focus my discussion on human development in cognitive development, psychosocial development, and cognitive and psychosocial development, perhaps. So let's begin our understanding of development in terms of cognitive, okay, cognition. What comes in your mind when you hear the word cognitive? Can you please type in the chat? What does it mean to you when you hear the word cognitive, especially cognitive development, thinking, okay? How about the others? Mind, okay, that involves mind. What else? Development of intelligence and capacity of understanding, okay, learning processes, mental processes, okay, how people learn and think, okay, yeah, learning and knowledge, question mark. Intellectual activity, all right. So I think you have an idea what cognitive means. That involves activity of the brain, how we process information, how we acquire information, how we learn and unlearn information. So that is basically cognitive. So when we talk about cognitive development. How does our brain, our recognition, the way we process information, we interpret, the way we learn, how is it being developed over time, over a period of time? So we are going to talk about Jean Piaget's cognitive stage theory. So this is your first time meeting Jean Piaget. So say hi to Jean Piaget. All right, that's good. Masunurin. All right, so Jean Piaget is actually the proponent of cognitive stage theory. But before we talk about the different stages that he identified in this theory, let's just understand first that these stages actually comes from this cognitive, this perspective. According to Piaget, our cognitive growth, that means our cognitive development occurs through three interrelated processes. What are these processes? And why did he call it interrelated? Because basically called interrelated because these practices are they have dynamic, like they work together. These three processes. All right. So first process is what Piaget called organization. So unsa maning organization? The organization is our tendency to create category. For example, you categorize people according to gender. That's organization. Or you categorize flowers according to flower colors. Or you categorize different things according to their criteria, specific characteristics. That is our tendency. We categorize things. And because of that organization, we can build schemes. Okay? Schemes is part of organization because when we are able to categorize things, we somehow build or create a pattern of thought and behavior. And then we use that pattern in specific or particular situation. So let me give you an example. You are joining an online class right now. Okay. What is the scheme that you're using while joining online class? So basically, you have an organized pattern. Maybe you categorize this online class as boring, or what do you think? How do you categorize this online class? Because the way you categorize it, that will be your scheme. That is your the way you respond, the way your mental process would depend on how you categorize it. Okay? Are you still following? Like, please type yes in the chat if you're still able to follow, or thumbs up. Okay, that's good. So while you're attending this online class right now, what is your scheme? How do you categorize this? How do you behave, and what is your thought about this? Do you agree? I mean, you were able to join online class before, right? During pandemic, am I correct? Yes, you did. So somehow that experience that you had in the past has created that specific scheme. Ako scheme, sir. Okay, so your specific scheme when you attend online class is mahigda, mo lie down because you just want to relax. Okay, that is your scheme and specific situation. All right. And that is because you have a tendency to organize, to create category based on unsay naa sa inyo ang nakita, the stimulus nga imong na-experience. All right. Are you following? All right. So that is schemes, no? If you go somewhere else, for example, you go to school, you have a face-to-face class, you have a different scheme during the face-to-face class. So what is your schemes kaha in face-to-face classes? What is your pattern of thought and behavior when you join on face-to-face classes? Are you the type of person attentive kaayo maminaw? Inana? Okay, sociable. Okay, bisag even if the teacher is discussing, you talk to your seatmate because that's how you socialize. Okay, that could be a scheme that you're able to build because you are able to organize your behaviors, or you categorize your behavior or your characteristic or thoughts. You have hyper visual awareness in a quiz. Okay. Naman kay kusog kay mata no? During quizzes. All right. So you understand what schemes means? Schemes basically is related to mura siya og kanang mental framework. Okay? Take note of that. It's mental framework or a guidebook. Mo na siya ang schemes. You behave in a specific way because you are able to develop schemes. All right? All right. So when we talk about adaptation, which is the second process, According to Piaget, we have a tendency to adjust to new information about the environment. We also have a tendency to use our old knowledge to deal with new information. He divided adaptation into two processes. Okay, number one, he called it assimilation, and the other one is called accommodation. What's the difference between assimilation and accommodation? Basically, when we assimilate, we incorporate our old information to deal or interpret a new situation. So for example, a child nakakita siya og four-legged animal. It's very cute. Niingon siya nga automatically in her mind, niya na siya, wow, it's a very cute cat. Because the child may think nga all four-legged animals are cats kay mo iya nakita sa balay. They have cats at home. Then that is assimilation. Why? Because the child is able to interpret the situation based on her or his own knowledge. So for example, another example, ang bata nakakita siya og a person with beard and mustache. And automatically in her mind, because she sigtan og TV, and it's December na Santa Claus, she would say, "Oh, Santa Claus, hi." But actually, that person with beard and mustache is not Santa Claus. All right. So that is an example of assimilation. Can you cite assimilation, an example of assimilation based on our online lecture today? Sige daw. You may experience assimilation at this moment. Can you type in the chat, or you can raise your hand and unmute your mic if you'd like to participate. If not, please type your answer in the chat. I'm waiting for your responses. What was the question, Ganis? The question is, can you give us an example of assimilation that is happening at this moment? This is my first time handling online class with you, right? So this is maybe something new. So can you give us an example of assimilation based on what is happening in our online class right now? Listening to the discussion is basically a behavior, and we dili pa ta makaingon if you are assimilating or accommodating because you are just listening. Sige daw, anybody? Assimilated that when multiple reactions are pressed, mawala na ang name sa reaction. O sabot, online learning. What is about online learning? For the first time, trying to avoid digital distractions, using old knowledge in new lesson. Sa Gmeet na reaction, raising your hand in Google Classroom by clicking the raise hand button. Okay. Yeah, that is assimilation because you learned already before nga when you click the raise hand button, pwede ka mo participate. Okay. Yeah, that's using old method. Let me give you another example. Ako gihatag niyo example ha. At this moment, this right now, using a new study method and certain profound study matter. You know that I always ask question every time I do conduct discussion. Am I right? Okay. And we are having online class. However, I still ask a lot of questions. Do you agree? So if that is your perception right now, you are assimilating because you use your old knowledge to give interpretation of the new experience. All right? Nasabta na. Now, let's proceed to accommodation. Accommodation means you adjust your cognitive structure, meaning you adjust your schemes para mo fit to the new information. So for example, going back to the example of the child ganina, nga niingon siya nga cute ang cat. Pero when the owner of the animal overheard the child, niyan ang owner, oh dear, this is actually a dog. So the child would say, so not all cute four-legged animals are cats. I see. That is now accommodation because you change your old schemes to deal or to interpret or to welcome new information. Are you getting this idea? So when another example, when the child learns that's not all old man with beard and mustache are Santa Claus, then that is accommodation. Are you getting the idea now? The difference between assimilation and accommodation? Now, according to Piaget, in the process of assimilating and accommodating, we have to balance. And we always have the tendency to balance things. And that's equilibrium comes in. Okay? It's our tendency to constantly strive for a stable balance. So it dictates the shift from assimilation to accommodation. All right. So that basically means that if a new information doesn't fit to your old understanding, we have a tendency to adjust to accommodate it para ma-maintain ang balance. Because if not, we continue assimilating. What will happen? There will be a problem in terms of learning new things. Are you getting me? Are you familiar with the line "Alam ko na yan"? Alam ko na yan. I don't need to study. Automatically, maybe because you always have that perspective, there's a possibility that maybe there's a tendency that we fail to accommodate because we always say, alam ko na yan, I know it. So, 10 last words before mahagbong. What do you mean, Ken? All right. Kanang alam ko na yan. Guys, are you getting the idea of these three interrelated processes? The organization, that we have this mental map, that we have schemes, a guidebook, mental or framework, and then this framework is actually influenced also by the way we adjust. This framework, these schemes could also change based on how we assimilate and we accommodate, and that we always have the tendency to strive for a stable balance between assimilation and accommodation. So that's according to John Piaget. Now let's proceed to the next slide. Now, the cognitive stage theory of Jean Piaget starts with number 1, sensorimotor stage. This occurs between birth to 2 years old. Okay, so what happens during this stage? This stage, children or infants cannot still logically think of things like how to solve problems in their mind, and even they still cannot perform that because their learning is still based on senses. Okay, the development of the sensation. So first thing that may be likely developed during this stage is their hearing and seeing. They learn based on what they hear. They learn based on what they see. Okay, and also part of that sensory motor is their motor action. By the way, it's called sensory motor because it comes from two words, senses and motor skills. Okay, so sensory experiences also comes with motor actions like mouthing, grasping, whatever they touch during this time, they thought they're food. That's why if you notice infants, whatever they hold, like your cell phone, your slippers, whatever it is, they put it in their mouth because they thought that something is food. Okay, so that is mouthing and grasping at this stage. And during the stage 1, the sensory motor stage, is the development of the object permanence. What does object permanence mean? Basically, take note of this. Object permanence is the concept that an object exists even if it's out of sight. So for example, what do you know what I'm holding right now? What is this object I'm holding right now?
Cell phone, sir.
Yes, it's a cell phone. If I am going to remove that from the camera, can you tell me what was I holding a while ago? Sa akong gihold ganina. It was my phone. Okay? Nganong kabaluman mo nga phone ang akong gunitan ganina? It's basically because you have mastered object permanence principle already. Are you getting me? And during the sensory motor stage, children, infants, birth to 6 months, they are still trying, or they are still in the process of developing object permanence. But after a period of months, 6 months, 4 to 6 months, that's when you can play peekaboo to the child. Do you know what peekaboo means? How to play peekaboo? You cover your face or you hide, and then you reappear. Malingaw na ang bata, anak, because object permanence is already developed, okay, during that period. So are you getting this? So this is the time also that children would start looking for his or her toy. Okay? So yun, anak, because of the idea of object permanence. Okay? So any question? Are you getting are you still following? Please type yes in the chat if you're able to follow, or thumbs up. Okay, good. So object permanence is clear already. Let's proceed to stage 2, which is the pre-operational stage. That's about 2 to 7 years old. Now, during this time, what's being developed is the use of symbol, like words, mental images. They can already remember images in their mind. They can already maybe use words, like simple words. And during the pre-operational stage, they can already solve simple problems. So like, so many mga simple problems nga ilang ma-solve kanang how to saon nila pagkuha silang dulaan. Okay, so nga nga simple problems, things that they can see. Pero dili pa gihapon logical ang ilang way of solving. Simple lang gid kayo nga problems. Okay? Like kanang toilet training, that is a part of simple problem solving in their stage. Okay? But the thing is, in pre-operational stage, there are two cognitive limitations. What are these? These are related to conservation principle. So let me give you an example of conservation. If you can see in the picture, there are two glasses of water. So initially, these glasses of water are actually put in the same height and same size nga glass. Okay, parehas sa length, pareha og kanang width nga glass. Pero ang gibuhat in this experiment is that the other glass is transferred into a thinner and longer glass. Then children under the pre-operational stage would think, if you ask them which one has more water, most of children between 2 to 7 years old, they would say it's the one with the taller glass. Nga naman, because during this time, their conservation principle is still not fully developed yet, meaning they can only think of, okay, one aspect. Maybe they're only considering the height to interpret the situation. Okay? Dili pa sila kabalo mo panaw og other dimensions or other factors such as, for example, the volume of the water or the width or height. They are still not able to develop that. That's why the conservation principle is still a limitation during this time. Okay? The second thing, which is another cognitive limitation during pre-operational stage, is the egocentric thinking. Okay, what does egocentric thinking mean? This means that children during this stage are still focusing on their own world. They are still having difficulty understanding the world of other children. Okay? Maybe they are still not able to understand perspective taking. Dili pa sila kasabot sa perspectives of mga children at sa ilang age. But this doesn't mean that egocentric thinking during this stage is something negative trait. It's not negative trait. It's just part of the development of their cognition. Are you getting me? Unlike now, if a person is told you are egocentric, that's a negative because that's a negative trait, meaning you are egocentric. You cannot put yourself in the shoes of others. But during pre-operational stage, it is not something negative. It is just part of the development, and it's important in the development of the next stage. Are you still following? Please thumbs up if you are still following. All right. So nasabtan ng conservation and egocentric thinking. All right. Let's proceed to number 3. Stage 3, according to the theory of Jean Piaget. He said that stage 3 for children about 7 to 11 years old is called concrete operations. Why did he call it concrete operations? So take note of the description. Children during this stage can already perform a number of logical operations on concrete objects. When we say concrete objects, these are objects that can be touched and can be seen. So for example, if you can see this picture on your right, this young girl is arranging the stick from shortest to tallest. Okay, it's easier for her to perform that because that is something that she can see, okay, and she can touch. So that's why. And another is the principle, the master of the principle of conservation. According to Piaget, children about 7 to 11 years old should have mastered already the principle of conservation, meaning if you put the 2 glasses of water, the same amount of glasses of water, same volume, and you transfer the other one to the taller, children can already infer that those nawalay na add or walay na kulang sa water, meaning they are just the same amount, same volume of water. Okay, that's because this time they already understand. Dili lang one factor ang ilang ma-understand. They started to develop already 2 or 3 or different factors nga maka-influence the way they interpret information. Another example is, for example, Pero naapagihapon cognitive limitation during this time because they are bound to what the reality of the concrete reality of the world. Okay, that means that they can only solve problems if they are using or if they can see it and sense it or see or touch it. Okay, so have you remember can you remember when you were like about 7 to 11 years old? When I was very young, when I was this age, I was in grade 1 or in grade 2, our teacher would ask us to bring, in our time we brought bamboo sticks, and then we brought the bamboo sticks to the school kay para when we solve mathematical problems we count 10 plus 10, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, and then 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, then we count them all together, then we have 20, di ba? Have you experienced that? Did you bring popsicle sticks in school to solve mathematical problems? Oh, Jethro, no. So how did you learn mathematical problems? Have you not experienced counting your fingers? 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Di ba? How you are able to do that because you can see your fingers, the number of fingers. Okay, you can count it. Okay? So yung nana mo learn sa school sa math sa una. Padadong popsicle sticks or katong bamboo sticks. Ihapon. Okay, and the good thing about this concrete operations is that the idea of reversibility and irreversibility principle is already should also already be being developed. What does it mean? Meaning that children about 7 to 11 years old can already understand that things can be, okay, kabalo na sila sa core of a certain thing. For example, a clay. Clay, are you familiar with clay? Kanang shape of different shapes. I think you were able to play that before. Now, in the reversibility principle is that children already understand that they can form clay into different shapes, and it's still a clay. Are you getting me? And in the irreversibility principle is that children already understand that if they break something like cell phone, that this can no longer be put back to the original state. Are you getting me? So that is reversibility and irreversibility principle. So that happens during concrete operation stage about 7 to 11 years old. Okay, now stage 4. My PowerPoint is not moving. Hold on. Okay, stage 4, that is the formal operation stage. So luckily you belong to this stage already since it's 11 years and above. Okay, so what is the difference between this stage to the other stage? This time, there's the children above 11 and above can already solve abstract problems in the logical manner, meaning we don't need to see things. We can solve even just thinking about it by just thinking about the problem. For example, naatay problema about our academics, then you're thinking, unsa man ako para mapasar ko? Mag-study ko karon. For example, akong kuanon anani. Then that means that we already in the formal operation stage. So if you take a look at this pendulum that's moving from left to right, okay, that's it. All right. With adolescents or people who belong to the formal operation stage, they're not just describing this pendulum as something that's moving from left to right, but in the formal operation stage, you can already measure the distance travel if you consider the weight of this, and then the gravitational pull, and then if you release this height, this length, unsa po ang length yung travel here. So basically, we need a formula and solve the travel, the length. That is an indicator that a person is already in the formal operation stage because it is not only using one dimension to solve or interpret situation, it's already using different dimensions, different interpretations of things. Okay? Are you able to follow? Please say yes or thumbs up in the chat. Question, clarification when it comes to the cognitive stage theory before we proceed to the next, to the psychosocial perspective, psychoanalytic perspective day of Sigmund Freud. No question, we'll proceed. All right. So I think you're very much familiar with Sigmund Freud. I think we mentioned Sigmund Freud already before. So in the psychoanalytic perspective, Sigmund Freud also created psychosexual development. According to him, our development is based on our sexual desires, unconscious desires, according to Sigmund Freud. So yun siya, development is shaped by unconscious forces that motivate human behavior. So that means that what motivates humans to do something to be are the unconscious forces. Where are these unconscious forces coming from? It's coming from our id, those experiences that have accumulated below the surface. Have I discussed to you the id, ego, superego already? All right, good. So I'm done discussing that idea. And that id actually created those unconscious forces, and it motivates us to a certain behavior. So ang iyang gitawag sa iya ang psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysis is a therapeutic approach, so we're not going to talk about this anymore. So let's proceed to the psychosexual development developed by Sigmund Freud. Is this your first time hearing about psychosexual development? Based on Freud? Not the first time. Okay, based on Freud, our development is based on our psychological development of self, personality is related to the sexual or the erogenous zone, erogenous area, the part of our body that should be satisfied in a specific stage. Okay, so psychosexual development is a central element of the psychoanalytic sexual drive theory. Of course, it's by Sigmund Freud. Freud believed that personality developed through a series of childhood stages in which pleasure-seeking energies from the id became focused on certain erogenous area. So according to Sigmund Freud, na ang id actually causes na naay part sa atong body nga erogenous. Unsa man ang erogenous? Ma-arouse siya in that specific stage of development. Okay? So note lang ha, we'll be talking about sexual arousal, desires. So dagko na ta. Okay? Be responsible in receiving this kind of information. All right. So stage 1 in the psychosexual development of Sigmund Freud, he called it oral stage. Nanata sa oral stage, birth to 1-year-old. Anong gitawag man niya oral? Because most of the time daw, infants use their mouth for satisfaction. Okay? The erogenous zone during this time is the mouth. Okay? So if you notice, if you go back to my discussion ganina, the mouthing and grasping, whatever they hold, they put it in their mouth. Because during this time, the infants like to put things in their mouth because that is their erogenous zone during that period. And if that erogenous zone, the mouth is not satisfied, it may develop fixation. Okay? So he called it fixation. Okay? Oral fixation means that activity that involves mouth. Okay? In the later stage. So for now, if you like, karon, assess yourself. If you always want to eat, to drink, and smoke, or nail bite, anything that involves mouth activity, that is basically because, according to Sigmund Freud, the erogenous zone during infancy, birth to 1-year-old, the mouth was not satisfied. Di ba? Kinsa man dere ang sige pagyapog nail bite, type, raise your hand. Type me in the chat. Agoy. So that basically means nga, possibly when you were below 1-year-old, your mouth was not satisfied. Well, I like drinking coffee, so maybe I'm one of of it too. Nga orally fixated, no? Although I don't nail bite, that I like eating, I like drinking, but I don't smoke. All right. So, no? So that's according to Sigmund Freud. Now, stage 2. The stage 2 is the anal stage, 1 to 3 years old. Okay, the erogenous zone during this time is, according to Sigmund Freud, is the anus or the urethra. Nga naman, because during this time, children start to have toilet training already. Okay, so mag-practice na sila on saan pag-properly nga malibang. How do we balance strictness of toilet training? I don't know. Depends. It depends on the characteristic that will be developed because according to Sigmund Freud, if the caregiver is very strict, it's actually not the child who is strict or not strict. It's the caregiver or the mother or the parent or the person taking care of the baby. If the person who takes care of the baby is very strict in terms of toilet training, most likely in the later years, later age, that the child would become stringent, orderly, rigid, and obsessive. Kanang sobra kalimpiado, and everything should be in order. Okay? Pero, according to Sigmund Freud, if the caregiver, the parent, the mother, the person who's taking care of the baby is not strict, pasagdan ra diha nalibang ang bata, nagkumot-kumot na sa iyang tae. So in the later years daw, would lead to a messy kind of personality, wasteful or destructive. So now assess yourself. If you look at your room and so messy, everything's topsy-turvy, then ask your parents, were you strict when I was young? Just to prove if Sigmund Freud's theory is correct or not. Huh? Diba? So that's in stage 2. Because take note, the erogenous zone is the anus or the urethra. Now, in stage 3, the phallic stage, 3 to 6 years old. Okay. So, uns may buti pasabot aning phallic stage. All right. So, in the phallic stage, the erogenous zone is the genital. So, children at this age already start having awareness of their genital. Okay. They already know that females have vagina and males have penis. Okay. And there is a conflict that's being developed during this time. It's called Oedipus complex and Electra complex. Take note, guys. Oedipus complex happens with boys. Okay, it applies to boys. Ang Oedipus complex. What does it mean? That boys have desire toward their mother. Okay? It's not basically sexual desire, pero it's basically more of they want their mother's attention. Boys always want their mother's attention. Maybe that's why they consider their fathers as their rival towards the mother's attention. Are you getting this? Okay. So that's the Oedipus complex. And male during this time would experience fear of castration according to Sigmund Freud. Naputlon ang ilaa sa ilaang papa tungod sa ilang rival nga experience sa mama. Okay? Singunana, no? That's castration anxiety. All right? So that's the castration anxiety. So that's the resolution during this time, according to Sigmund Freud, is that children will start to identify themselves like the male role. Okay? Internalize na nila ang role silang father being male kay para mo develop para ma-cope nila na nga stage. Okay? So therefore, mo start na develop ang formation sa gender and identity and the superego during this time. Okay? Now, let's proceed to the female. Electra complex. Okay? So the Electra complex applies to girls. Okay? This time daw, according to Sigmund Freud, girls also have desire toward father, to the opposite sex, okay? To the father. All right? So meaning they want the father's attention. And they are rival na nila ang ilang mother's mother. So rival nila ang ilang mother, they want the father's attention. But this time, according to Sigmund Freud, they have penis envy. Girls have penis envy. Murag na kung sila, hala, nalagi na ibitay, wala lagi ko. Nananabit ang idea. All right, so that's according to Sigmund Freud. I don't know if that is real. Girls, is that true? So then, to resolve this conflict at this age, female would start to identify with mother. And then they will be able to internalize their female role. Okay? So, ma-influence na sila sa unsa may role as expected of them from the society, sa mother's role. Okay? So, same with the male. This time, they would already develop formation of gender identity. Okay? And also the development of the superego during this time. Okay, now let's proceed to stage 4. Stage 4 is the latency, 6 to puberty. By the way, guys, medyo saba there is akong area karon. Can you hear the noise? Wala ra? Very good. So that's good. Let's go back. So in the latency stage, 6 to puberty, erogenous zone, sexual feelings are inactive. So this is a good stage. But do you know why it's inactive? Because children at this age are more concerned with peer relationships, hobbies, and other interests. Have you noticed during this stage, 6 years old and above, children always like to play? Do you agree? They always want to be with their friends to play something. That's something that's very enjoyable this time. That's why, according to Sigmund Freud, the sexual feelings are inactive during this time, meaning there is no erogenous zone during this time. So that is happening. Now, in stage 5, social and communication skills and confidence are starting to develop during this stage because of their ability to communicate and socialize. Now, in stage 5, the psychosexual development is the genital stage, puberty to adult. This one, erogenous zone, is the maturing sexual interest. So, muna na siya ang nag-mature na ang sexual interest, naghanap na ka ng partner, maybe of opposite sex or same sex. If the other stages have been completed successfully, the individual should now be well-balanced, warm, and caring. So that means, according to Sigmund Freud, if other stages 1, 2, 3, 4 are completed successfully, meaning erogenous zones during those eras are satisfied, then in stage 5, most likely they would develop a well-balanced, warm, and caring relationship. All right. Interesting. Do you guys have questions regarding Sigmund Freud's psychosexual development? No? So we'll continue. Yes, Kent.
Personally, sir, I find it hard to believe the latency stage of Sigmund Freud, because in Freud's era, which is the Victorian era, there is a lot of cultural repression on sexual thoughts, especially on children ages 6 to 12. But now we have open media and everywhere, internet, information is so easy to get. So there might be a slight variation to psychosexual development, especially in the current times. So that's why I find
Actually, yeah, that's actually true. And that one of the reasons why Sigmund Freud is very controversial, because his theories are very difficult to prove, difficult to test. And even the Oedipus complex, the Electra complex, is difficult to prove. So the latency stage, there's a possibility it has changed as well because of what you mentioned about the technology, diba? Yeah, that's a very nice kanang observation na possibly mo change yan now. But do you know what's interesting about Sigmund Freud? His theories are actually based on his experience. He studied himself. So muna siya. And he became controversial at that time because sexual topic during this time was a taboo. So it's not accepted topic, pero mo iya anggi. So he generalized himself to the entire human being. Exactly. Pero even if he's for further studies, okay? Yunana siya, for understanding personality and human behavior. So very good observation. Thank you very much, Kent, for your participation. We'll proceed. Any other question before we proceed to the next topic, which is psychosocial development? No more question. All right, so let's proceed. I'd like you to meet Erik Erikson. Say hi to Erik Erikson. Psychosocial development. When you hear the word psychosocial, what do you think that means? Type your answer in the chat if you hear the word psychosocial. Basically, it comes from two words, psychological and social. So what does it mean? You can unmute your mic or you can type your answer in the chat, please. You should type your answer in the chat. Yes, Anne?
In my understanding, sir, I think what psychosocial means is our mental sa pag-socialize with others.
Mental process sa pag-socialize with others. There's a better answer, okay? It's not really the mental process in a way that we socialize with others, but it's somehow related to the development of our psychological development, which is closely related to the influence of the society. So actually, I just answered my own question. That's why it's called psychosocial. Now you're laughing at me. I answered my own question. It is called psychosocial because according to Erik Erikson's theory is actually focusing on the development of a person, the personality, okay, based on the influence of the society. Okay, so muna sa iyang emphasis in development. So to give you a little background, Erikson was part of the group of the psychoanalysts, part of the circle of Freud's in Vienna, pero compared with Freud, who focused on the psychosexual development and understanding personality, but Erik Erikson is focusing on the influence of society on the developing personality. Okay, and according to Erikson, ego development is lifelong. Okay, so now when you understand this, maybe try to assess which one makes sense. All right, so Erikson actually started with he created 8 psychosocial development. Okay, so what I like about this theory is he explained development, development of personality from birth to death. Okay, he is the only psychologist to explain from birth to death. Now, he also emphasized that every stage of development, individuals, humans always experience psychological struggle or crisis. Okay, so not a struggle or crisis every stage. And then he also coined the term identity crisis. That identity crisis occurred during adolescence. We're going to explain this further later on. And before we proceed with the stages of development, I would like you to remember that in the theory of Erikson, according to him, development follows the epigenic principle. It is epigenic is actually coming from the how the baby is developed in the womb of a mother, nga it undergoes a step-by-step process. Dili siya pwede mulak to the process. So that's the epigenic principle, meaning that a child should be able to crawl first before the child can walk and before the child can run. So that means that in the theory, in the psychosocial theory of Erikson, that means that dili pwede mo skip og level. It is a ladderized process, step-by-step process. It follows the epigenic principle. And the next thing is that in his theory, there are interactions of opposites. Nga naman, it's interaction because these opposites are always go hand in hand. Either the stage is satisfied or not satisfied, so it may develop as syntonic elements or dystonic elements. So may puti pasabot ng syntonic or dystonic. The syntonic is the harmonious element or the positive side. The dystonic is the disruptive element or the negative side. If you remember a while ago, I mentioned Erikson's theory has identity crisis. So muna siya ang interaction of opposites is actually the the psychological struggle that a human being experiences per stage. Okay, may experience syntonic or dystonic element. Example, during infancy, there's basic trust. Basic trust is the syntonic tendency, and the opposite is the basic mistrust, a dystonic tendency. So basically, during this stage, the infancy, a child may think nga can this caregiver take care of my needs? Inana nga dito nga question, pero even if the child cannot think of that, pero somewhat inana kung mahatag, if the caregiver can provide the needs during infancy, that will develop basic trust. But if needs during this time are not met, it probably develop basic mistrust, which is the dystonic tendency. Okay, so again, let's proceed to the stages so that you can understand thoroughly. So these are the stages: infancy, early childhood, preschool, school age, adolescence, young adult, middle adulthood, and maturity. So let's begin with the infancy, stage 1, from birth to 18 months. The conflict during this time, I mentioned this a while ago, is called basic trust versus mistrust. So if you think about this basic trust versus mistrust, meaning that maybe infants during this time rely on how the caregiver, maybe the mother, the ones taking care of the child, is providing the needs of the child. For example, if the infant is crying, there are different types of cry. Maybe the child is in pain or hungry. That's 2 types of cries during infancy. If the child is hungry and the caregiver is able to detect that she is crying or he is crying because he or she is hungry, and the caregiver is able to provide, then most likely the child will develop the basic trust. But most of the time, these needs are not met. It may also develop sense of mistrust. And the good thing about developing basic trust during this time is that it will also develop a virtue called hope, that on the next level, next stages, the world can provide basic needs. Okay, that these basic conflicts during each stages can be addressed based on what is needed in specific stage. Are you getting the idea? Are you still following? All right. So now in stage 2 of the development, it's called early childhood, 18 months to 3 years old. So the conflict or crisis that's being developed during this time is called autonomy versus shame and doubt. So basically, a child develops a balance of independence and self-sufficiency over shame and doubt. If you notice during this stage, 18 months to 30 years old, you notice that children can already walk and they can already run, right? So 3 years old. And because of that ability to walk, because of that kind of motor skills na nga ilang ma-develop, they somehow want to do things on their own. Okay? They try to become independent, okay? And self-sufficient, that they can do things on their own. That is autonomy. Pero if during this stage they fail, for example, every time they do something, kusnit ang dunggan, kusnit ang kilig, gikasapan, gisagitan, it may develop shame and doubt. And if shame and doubt is being developed, it will also influence the willpower of the child to perform things on their own. Are you getting me? So it's important that autonomy is being developed at this time because it can influence the willpower of a child to perform tasks by themselves, okay, or by himself or herself. So muna siya ang relevance why autonomy or needs during this time should be met. All right, and then it will proceed to stage 3, which is the late childhood preschool or play age. That's 3 to 5 years old. If you notice this time, children already start kanang doing things on their own, di ba? If they successfully master autonomy, then there's a possibility that they can initiate. Nga naman, because if they are able to develop initiative, okay, they develop a sense of purpose nga makabalo day ko ani, I can perform this, and my mom or dad kay praised me for doing this, so I'm gonna do it again. For example, early in the morning nakita sa child nga mag-water sa plant ang iyang mom or iyang dad, and then the next morning kay siya na ang nag-water sa plant, he or she is doing the initiative to water the plant, and then ang gibuhat sa parents kay gihug siya or gikiss, etc. Whatever gesture to praise the child's action. So that means that the child will develop sense of purpose nga okay, I'm going to do it again kay na-happy akong parents. It's like that. Then that will develop initiative. However, if the child fails to perform or initiate task because of the caregiver's response to his or her behavior, that will develop guilt. Okay? And because of that guilt, mawa na po yung sense of purpose mo nang every time na sa buhaton, he or she may have second thoughts all the time. Are you getting this? Because there is no sense of purpose. The purpose this time is the virtue that's being developed during stage 3. Okay. Are you still following? Please type yes in the chat if you're still able to follow, or thumbs up. That's good. Okay. Now, stage 4. Guys, this stage is on until stage 8, okay? Is it okay with you if we extend a little bit? If it's not, you can just leave the meet if you have some other things to do. Well, I just have to finish this. Okay, so stage 4, school age, 6 to 12 years old, the conflict or crisis or the psychological struggle during the stage is called industry versus inferiority. Okay, what does it mean? Have you noticed when you're 6 to 12 years old, you like to compete with others? I don't know if you like to compete with others, but when I was this age, I like to compete with others. I started to learn I can win. I can compete. Let me share you an experience. When I was in grade 1 and grade 2, our teacher put 3 envelopes on the kanang cork board. And these 3 envelopes has A, B, and C. If your name is in the envelope A, that means that you are one of the top performers in the class. If your name is in the B, average ra ka. If your name is in the C, the lowest performer in that specific period. When I was this age, I always wanted to see my name in envelope A. Kanya naaman ko ka-rival sa una, nga girl, nga bright pod. I always wanted to see her name in B or C. I would even like, malipay gani kung makita sa name na sa C. But no, I was starting to compete already. So I don't know if you experienced that, but yeah, I can relate to this. That's this time I started to become industrious. I started to compete with others. Even during this stage when I was like 7 or 8 years old, I competed in the district level sa malikhaing pagbasa, and I was like I can compete like that. And then luckily naka second state, naka second or first runner up, though. And so I was already started competing. I think you can relate to this experience. And but what will happen if a child is not able to cope with the demand in the environment during this stage? It may develop inferiority. That there's a possibility that a child is withdrawn, kanang dili ka siya mag-apil-apil, always at the back. Posible gid siya nga mustap ug kuan. No? So that could be manifestations of the feeling inferior. Okay. Now the virtue, if industry is being developed this time, the virtue is called skills, because skills, ma-master na niya ang yung skills nga mayo day ko ani, then I'm going to do it again. All right. So muna siya ang virtue during this time. So stage 5, adolescence. This is your stage, and this is very interesting. It's 12 to 20 years old. According to Erikson, the conflict that you experience during this time is called identity versus role confusion. Let me ask you this question. Who are you? Do you know yourself? Do you know your strengths and limitations? Do you know the things you like and you don't like? But do not pressure yourself. It's okay if you still cannot answer the question. It's because adolescent stage, according to Erikson, is the formation of identity stage. Okay? But in the later year, if you're still not able to find yourself, then you may find help. Like, yeah. So that you can understand, or you do something so you can understand yourself. That is, according to kanang the opposite is the dystonic tendency here is called role confusion. Role confusion happen if an adolescent is not able to identify or understand his or her strengths and limitations. Kung wala pa siya kabalo kung kinsa siya, then there is still a possibility of role confusion. What does role confusion mean? Oh, this is also somehow related to the expectations from the society of what the role you can do as a female, as a male, as a daughter, as a son. Okay, so that's role confusion. So that's the reason why teens your age, between 12 to 20 years old, if you are doing, for example, you keep kanang karon nag-attend ka og volleyball, ay di man ko gana volleyball ato nasad ko sa other sports, and that means that you are still having difficulty fitting. You're still having difficulty identifying what are the things that you really like doing. So that is an example of role confusion. Okay? Now, the virtue during this time is called fidelity. Okay? So, unsa may buti pasabot anang fidelity in the role confusion? It is basically your ability to commit to your values, your beliefs, and your identity. Bisan pa og you are faced with societal pressure, or maybe because of the societal pressure, you're able to develop internal doubt. Fidelity, if you're able to develop your identity this time, you can somehow develop fidelity, being true to yourself. Are you getting this? So that is it in the stage 5. Now in stage 6, young adulthood, 20 to 25 years old, the conflict or crisis is called intimacy versus isolation. This time, by the way, guys, let me be clear to you. When we talk about intimacy, this refers to the closeness of your relationship, your bond, how close you are to a certain person. Maybe how close you are with your family, how close you are with your friends, or how close you are with your lover. That is intimacy, okay? And then person seeks to make commitment to others. If unsuccessful, it may lead to isolation. Are you familiar with this line? Kanang someone nakita na yung holding hands, mana siya, magbuwag magyapon mo ugma. Di ba? That could be an indicator of isolated siya, because kung man siya, kanang bitter man siya, naman siya medyo bitterness man siya. Bitter siya sa ubang tao nga na I love life, for example. Okay, maybe there is a possibility that that person is not able to build intimate relationship with others. Okay, so that is the one. Because those who are isolated, they suffer from self-absorption. So it's always about themselves. It's not always about the others. Ang idea is isolation. All right? And the virtue that can be developed during this time is love. Kani ang love diri malutong na love. Okay? Na klaseng intimacy. It is not only intimacy with girlfriend or boyfriend, but it could also be intimacy that you can experience with someone, your friends, close friends, or family members or relatives. That kind of intimacy. Okay. By the way, am I too fast, or are you still able to follow? So you're still able to follow. Okay. Let's proceed to stage 7. Duhan na lang ka stages, guys, and we're done. Stage 7, middle adulthood, 25 to 65 years old. The conflict that's being that people during this time could experience is called generativity versus stagnation. Okay. Generativity for mature adult, they are concerned with establishing and guiding the next generation. They want to help the next generation. Okay. Have you heard the line, "Listen to me because I've been there, done that"? Inana bitaw nga line nga nahuman ako ana, papunta ka pa lang, pabalik na ako. So you have to listen to me. That is a sign of generativity nga naman, because that person wants to give with his wisdom or her wisdom to the next generation. Okay? Para dili sila masayop. That is a sign of generativity. And people under this age, people who are in the generativity, they like to do something for the community. Okay? They like to involve themselves in the community or to the next generation because they want the next generation to prosper, not to dili para mabagsak, but they want the next generation to prosper. All right? But there are people in the middle adult who also experience stagnation, especially if they are still not able to achieve their personal goals. Okay? So if they're not able to achieve their personal goals, maybe they're still busy creating or building intimate relationship. They're still busy with their career formation or development. They're still busy with a lot of things that's basically para sa ilang kaugalingon. They may experience stagnation and they may fail to care for others. So people who are experiencing generativity will also develop a virtue of care because they think about the next generation. And the last one, which is stage 7. This is maturity stage, 65 years to death. The conflict is called integrity versus despair. So people during this age, the older adults, already accept their own life. They already accept the meaning of their life. And the good thing about people, older adult, if they experience integrity, is that they already accept the inevitability of death. So madawat na nila nga close na sila sa death and dying. So that is integrity. But for people who are still not happy with how they live their lives, they may experience despair. Okay? Murag maglagot sila, na sila regrets, na dili na sila makakontinue living because they want to achieve something, or maybe there are still some things in their lives that they have not achieved, that could develop despair. Okay? And this time, if integrity is being developed, people develop wisdom. Older adults develop wisdom during this age. All right. So that ends our discussion today. Do you guys have any questions or clarification?